And now, it's time for that great new game show.
It's the PowerShell Podcast. It's all about PowerShell and the PowerShell community.
The PowerShell Podcast.
And now, here's your hosts, Jordan Hammond and Andrew Plaw.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the PowerShell Podcast. I am the bright star of the podcast, Jordan, and with me is the extremely late Andrew Plaw.
That's me. You're our North Star, man. We're just following you to go home.
Yeah, you were late enough. For those that are watching on YouTube, you'll notice that Andrew's camera feed actually comes in third because he was not on time.
Listen, I have children, and sometimes summer camp takes a while. It is what it is. But Jordan,
enough of the public shaming.
No. Now we're public prizing. Okay. How early did you wake up today to make this amazing podcast happen, my man?
I did not wake up any earlier than I do every workday.
Well,
it's 5:15.
That's pretty early. And to be fair, you were prepping and in the room early, so kudos to you for making this happen. But Jordan, there's a big announcement this week, man. Definitely a heads up we want to give our people with AD environments, not Azure AD, but regular AD.
Yep.
Yeah, so shout out to Sam Erdy, part of the PowerShell community, who shared some code to check for accounts in AD that have a null value for MSDS-supported encryption types, because there's a change in behavior that can break things. So he has a little PowerShell code. It'll be in show notes. Linked his tweet will be in the show notes as well. Give him a follow. He's always posting some useful stuff. He's one of my preferred people that I'm seeing share things about Twitter these days. Pretty relevant, hands-on stuff.
Preferred people, that's high praise.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
So,
well, no one's here to listen to us.
Well,
I'm boring, and you're frantic. Let's bring in the reason people join us: a first-time speaker, which makes him already a legend. Emrys MacInally. Hopefully, I got that right. You mentioned that people get that one wrong along, so I'm gonna say I crushed it.
Yeah. So Emrys MacInally.
But MacInally.
So crushed it.
No,
it's all right. No, but thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, this is fantastic. So you spoke at the PSConfEU. This was your being a first-time speaker?
Yeah, exactly. So I've been an attendee at the PSConf since 2019. Great conference, really love it. Bonded with all the people, and just after the last PSConf in Vienna last year, Gail from the PSConf team introduced the mentorship program. So basically, they were looking for first-time speakers, and they offered to go through the process of writing an abstract, what to expect. And so I had supporters asking me, do it, submit the talk, go through that mentorship program, and see if you can get in. And that's what I did, and my talks were accepted. I was really nervous. I didn't really think I had the stuff to get it done. But then 5th of January, I had an email in my inbox saying, your talks have been accepted. So I was thinking of winging it and say, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm too afraid. I'm too scared of speaking in front of people because it's something I don't feel comfortable with at all. But my wife said, you have to do it. You want to do it, just do it. And then I said, okay, and started preparation.
Well, I love the idea of the mentorship program because we always talk about how PowerShell makes things like main thing that they knock down barriers to make progressing easier. And it sounds like they've even done that for speaking now, which is probably necessary because we don't get a lot of social people in the IT field.
Yes, so the mentorship program just took away lots of questions you had. They answered the questions. They told us how abstract should look like, what they expect from a speaker, what should be content of the abstract, what the demo, what the speak should look like in volume and size, and how to prepare for that. So that was good. That made me feel confident. So basically, last day of call for talks, I wrote down my 2 abstracts, sent it off to expect never to hear back from them ever again, but it worked out.
That's the way to do it. Submit it and just be like, okay, that was the real challenge. If they accept it, okay, but they're not going to. Don't worry. And then when you get accepted, it's a whole new challenge. But
see,
that sounds
that's where
so
my Cell Genius comes in is I just didn't get accepted because my talks were bad. And then here I am. I can say, oh, I tried, but I don't actually have to talk.
Hey, but you did the hard part. Submitting can sometimes be very challenging. So next year you can submit again and bada bingo.
So
no, I think it's time to call. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
That's definitely something I'm going to do. I'm going to try and come up with new talks for next year because it was just an unbelievable experience.
Yeah.
So you didn't just come in with one talk. You did 2 talks.
So yes, it's mandatory to have at least 2 talks because otherwise it wouldn't be viable for the organization team just to get so many people in just to speak.
Okay.
So yeah, I did in 2 talks because that was the mandatory minimum. I handed that in and both were accepted.
Nice. All right. So is it one where you have to submit multiple, but they only necessarily take one, or is it that you have to have 2 accepted before they let you in?
No, so the advice is you should submit 3 or more because they take at least 2.
Okay.
So 2 is a bare minimum you have to speak on at the actual conference.
Now, I love that mentorship program because it echoes a lot of the same things we've heard on the podcast, where like having someone to tell you that like, hey, it's going to be okay, or to sanity check your thoughts and say, hey, no, that's not a terribly dumb idea. That'd actually be helpful. Having someone to be there for you and encourage you is so helpful. So who were some of those mentors that you worked with?
So that was Rob Sewell, Babs, and Gail. They were helpful. So I had a few talks with Gail. He told me how to go through everything. If I had any questions about the talks, he would answer them straight away. It was great. It was a good experience.
Yeah, that sounds super useful because those are pretty successful people and just great people all around, and getting the opportunity to just spend time with them and interact with them and learn from them, I think outside of any kind of doing a talk thing would be a very valuable experience, let alone pairing it with your growth and pushing out and doing a talk for the first time. And that is so cool. I bet this has been a whirlwind for you, kind of one exciting thing after the other.
Yes, it was amazing. It's been a tough 6 months. I often question myself, am I good enough? Are my talks good enough? Is it relevant for the community? So I was questioning myself, and I was at some point thinking of calling it off because I was just too scared, basically, because God, it's intimidating being on the podium, on stage, talking to the people, and trying to be relevant.
Right.
Yeah. Is it relevant is the one I struggle with the most, because I tend to, once I learn something in my mind, since I know it, everybody then knows it. So it's hard for me to find something where I can say, I bet a lot of people can learn from this, because once I learn it, then it's just like, well, everyone knows this.
Yep. But I really appreciate your vulnerability in saying you thought about calling it off, because I've been in that same boat, and I bet other people are. And I think it's great to hear that others are struggling in a similar way and overcoming it and coming out the other side. And, how do you feel now that you've given the talk and given both talks?
Oh, I feel absolutely amazing. It was a thrill. It was pure joy afterwards. After my second talk, I did actually, everything came off. I was tired, all the work for the last 6 months, but it was really good. And shout out to everyone who supported me, because I just had so much support from the community. So many people at the conference give me tips how to get through it on stage. Being that Ben, Grazie, Pierre Romain, they all were very helpful.
Wow.
That's one of my favorite parts about events like that, is all the people that you've been reading their work online for so long, and then they're just there. You can have a conversation over a beer. It always makes for that's the experiences that are my favorite from any sort of PowerShell convention.
Yeah. How was the beer, by the way?
Oh, the beer was great. I mean, if you're in Prague, land of the Pilsner, great beer.
Nice.
Lots of beer as well, but not till after my talks.
That's probably wise.
So was last year your first year at PSConfEU?
You said 2019.
2019. So in Hanover was my first one. 2020, unfortunately, was called off.
Right.
That was they had an online conference, which was good, but not the same. And then last year, Vienna.
Nice. So you've been years in the making for this talk, kind of warming up to it.
Yeah, it was
Nice.
great. I mean, I since I went there the first time, 2019, I have been thinking of submitting something, but I didn't know
Right.
how to start off, how to write an abstract. So this time I did have the opportunity. I know what's relevant. I had the support I needed. And also in the preparation, I had tons of support from the community. I had people I could go to. I could pitch ideas. I went through my talk beforehand. They would give me tips. So that was good.
So one thing I'm curious of, when you're picking your talks or summit, do you pick things that you're already familiar with or you've done at work, or do you choose something like, I think this is interesting, I'd love to learn it, and you use prep for a talk as a chance to learn it?
A sort of bit of both. So both the talks I already knew by heart, the stuff I was talking about, but then actually submitting a talk, I really noticed I didn't have to get knees deep into this technology, so I can be able to answer all the questions. So basically, before I was just using it, and then I went deep into detail in preparation.
I don't know if Andrew's okay with me spoiling it, but one of his talks, he's like, this is interesting. And so he submitted the talk. He didn't know anything about it. I was impressed with that. It was a great talk though.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Sometimes you got to learn something new for the people. But question about the other talks there, because I know that while you did your own talks, it sounds like you attended a bunch as well, because this is like a 1 week event, right? So what were some of your favorite takeaways?
What were my favorite takeaways? Oh,
talks.
God, that's a good question. Which ones do I like? Pierre Romain did one about using Copilot, which was interesting. Teasing about what's coming next in the closed beta currently. What function will come to VS Code in the future? That was quite interesting. What else did I look at? I watched a good talk about assembly conflicts when loading assemblies. That was a good one from Andy from the PowerShell team. That was a good one. Of course, the Pester talks are always interesting. Yeah, always good to get new stuff, new knowledge about Pester. Then, of course, the standard state of the shell and all that information, good information. Yeah. But to be honest, sorry.
At the state of the shell, what's your impression of things? Like what's happening? What's popping in the PowerShell world?
I think PowerShell is going in the right direction. The focus on cross-platform the last couple of years has been great. I think the new developments with PowerShell Get or PowerShell Resource Get, I think it's called now. They just renamed it. I think that's going to be exciting. I'm waiting for that desperately for production. So everything is going in the right direction. I think we're going to have. I think the PowerShell community and PowerShell is going to thrive in the next coming years.
Nice. Any chance I get to say this? 1 billion sessions a month. I've said it so many times now, Jordan. Have you heard it enough?
Never enough.
PowerShell's popping.
You know, I'm not impressed. You get back to me when it's 2 billion sessions a month.
Dang. So on the topic of talks, I know you mentioned you gave 2. What were your talks about?
Yeah, so I had 2 talks. My first talk I held was about developing in Windows Docker containers. So basically, I do a lot of coding against Windows servers and deployments against Windows servers, and I needed a way to have a clean environment to code in. Used to do that on the VMs, and I basically had one project where I could use VS Code dev containers because it was cross-platform and they are Linux only. And I thought the experience coding in the dev container was so great that I wanted to have the same experience in Windows container. So I built a Windows container to develop in at work, and I thought, yeah, that's something I could speak about. People might be interested in how to develop in Windows containers and get all the benefits from container development.
I want to learn more. So question for people who aren't too familiar with Docker, what is Docker before we get too deep?
Yeah, well, Docker basically, in comparison to a virtual environment, is just it's a virtual. So it doesn't virtualize a hardware like a VM where you install a whole operating system on your VM. It's basically it virtualizes your operating system, and you only have to deploy your applications and your frameworks into your container. That makes the footprint a lot smaller. The containers build faster, start quicker, use less RAM. So overall, it's just a quicker and faster experience, and it gets you up and developing a lot quicker.
Cool. So it sounds like VMs were kind of used for that for a while. There's a whole lot of complications that go to it. And now for a lot of use cases, people have moved to a container approach, and Docker is one of the ways to take advantage of that.
Exactly.
Cool. And I think your description of how you use it is probably the main use, which is where you're using it for testing, loading your custom applications and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And developing it. So I use it as my main developing environment nowadays. And it just gives you so much many more benefits towards using VMs.
Right. And I think I see it a lot in GitHub projects. And one of the benefits of having it on a GitHub project is you can make sure that everyone that contributes is using the same environment, right? You don't need to tell them how to configure their VM. They can run the Docker file and kind of get set up with what they need to have the same environment you do.
Yeah. So using GitHub Codespace is a great way to go. Unfortunately, they are just Linux only. So if you want to be developing in Windows, you have to go down the route I described in my talk, building your own Windows Docker container, pre-installing VS Code Server, your extensions, and all that good stuff.
Nice. Looking forward to that one. And I think it's worth noting, Docker's sort of free, but also recently they changed to where, like, if you're a big organization, you have to pay.
Yes, exactly. So currently Docker Desktop is free if your organization has either less than 250 employees, or you have a yearly turnover of, I think it's 10 million a year. So for small organizations, it's still free.
Yeah. And also home computer, totally free. Unless you have a huge side business. Okay, so that's one talk. That's awesome. People, if you aren't using Docker, check it out. It's a pretty cool technology. You've probably heard it mentioned a bunch because it's useful and people have really adopted it. So what about your other talk?
So my other talk was on Chocolatey, using Chocolatey in offline deployments. So this is something I will use in work, deploying Chocolatey package onto an offline target, not knowing if they've got any internet connectivity. So I'm assuming you've got no repository, no NuGet repository where you've got your Chocolatey packages. So I went through the process of installing Chocolatey on an offline target, creating your own packages with the binaries to deploy on an offline target. And then I went through ways to add parameter validation. So your users, your colleagues don't make as many typos when passing in parameters. And I went through a way how to add interactive debugging to your package so you can debug any package on any target.
Now, was that more of a like inspired from work you did thing, or?
This was inspired through my day-to-day job. This is something I use frequently, and so been talking to James from Chocolatey about it, and Manfred from Boxstarter, and we're thinking of taking that one part of the debugging part from my talk and putting into an own Chocolatey extension, so everyone can benefit from it.
And that's what it's all about, right? From the talks of like, hey, you solved the problem at work, like you do a job, right? And you do things, and it's likely that other people out there have similar problems that they're dealing with, and seeing how you approach it and the solution you come up with is helpful, to the point where now it sounds like your work is going to be repurposed outside of even the talk, which is just what we love to see. We're trying to be efficient out here, and you're saving us all time. You're helping us out, man. Really appreciate it.
That was my intention. So basically, when I thought of what talks could I submit, I thought, is it something that is relevant? Is it something that hasn't been talked about yet? So that was my key focus.
Pretty awesome. Now, did you have a chance to check out the lightning talks at all?
Yes, I did. So this time the lightning talks were like 4 tracks or 3 tracks per hour.
Really?
So you couldn't check out all the lightning talks, unfortunately. So I went to one track where I saw a couple of lightning talks. That was interesting. Who talked? Let me think about. Christian talked at one of the lightning talks I went to. About
Christian Ritter, yeah.
Exactly, about performance. Grazi was there and talked about the compare object commandlet, which was also quite good. Just show insight how she uses it in the company to make reports.
Nice. Yeah, I like those lightning talks. They are a good chance to do that first kind of talk. I mean, obviously, you didn't do one last year, did you?
I didn't do. I was too scared.
Right. So you just went straight to the deep end.
I went straight into the deep end and didn't regret it.
Yeah, you did it. Congrats. I bet you're really proud of yourself. I'm proud of you, and I just met you.
Yeah. As you can see, I'm still smiling.
Yeah.
I'm still on the post talk high.
That's why we wanted to get you sooner than later, because I know that after I have like one of those big exciting moments, sometimes I'm like, okay, this weekend I'm just gonna lay down and relax. I talked too much last week. Yeah.
I think that's it's common. I think for most people, after a convention, the week after is they set a new record for. I set a new personal best for naps. I just assume others do as well.
Sometimes, I mean, because usually during the week you're having a couple beers, so it's like you need like a little cleanse over the weekend.
Yeah. So after the second talk, it just like fell off, and it was just like shattered and tired and happy and high, and it was a great experience. It was all worthwhile. Yeah.
Nice. And what days did you give these talks? Like, how many days did you have after your second talk to next?
So the PowerShell conference is from Monday to Thursday, and I held my talks on Tuesday and Wednesday. So my Wednesday talk was in the morning, so there weren't that many there because Tuesday evening is a community event. So a lot of late awakenings that day.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, if you had a message for someone else in your shoes, it's like, they're doing PowerShell, they have a job, right, in the space. But they're not talking. They want to sort of like they entertain the idea, but then they pull it back because of doubt and stuff like that. What would you say to them, people in that position?
First of all, just go for it. It's worth it. Secondly, I would say when it comes to the PSConf, there's going to be this autumn. There's going to be another mentorship program again because it worked successfully. Go there, get the information. Just because you go there doesn't mean you have to submit anything, doesn't mean you have to talk. It just means get the information, get an idea what it's all about. And the third is reach out to your community, your friends, your colleagues, talk to them, pitch ideas. They will help you anytime. Just reach out, say, I've got this talk, can I demo it to you? And they'll give you, hopefully, they'll give you honest feedback. And they will.
Nice. Yeah, definitely sign up for that. Because what's the worst can happen? You just get some support, have a great time. I think it's really cool that they do that program too.
It's also something comforting of being in one of the most supportive communities I've ever been in. Like, no one is going to blow smoke up your ass if it needs improvement, let you know. But everyone is so supportive of you taking the next step. It makes it a little bit easier when it's like a community step almost.
Yeah, the great thing is, I haven't been to many other conferences, so I don't know how Summit is, but PSConf is like coming home to a family. There's no barrier between speakers and attendees. Everyone's friends, everyone talks, everyone has a great time. Lots of hugs. Everyone's sad when they have to go back home and can't wait to get back next year.
How would you rate your experience on a scale of 1 to 10?
12.
12. Dang, that good.
Skills broken.
Can you share any memorable feedback or interactions you had after your talks? Any connections? Any people come up and say, "Hey, I use that"?
I had amazing feedback. Strangers who I haven't talked to before came up to me and said, "Oh, that was great. I want to try it. When your slides and demo code going to be up on the GitHub repo, I would like to try it." Especially with the Docker issue, or when Manfred came up and said, "Oh, that was great. That gave me the idea. Why don't we do a extension for Chocolatey?" Also great. And basically, I think the thing I'm going to remember most is for me, Twitter blew up with all those comments, people posting pictures saying, "Oh, just watched a great talk about Chocolatey or Docker," and that's that was thrilling.
Nice.
Well, it looks like you got your talks up in your own personal GitHub 3 days ago. So this is, I mean, it makes sense. Summit just, or not Summit, I keep on, PSConFEU just ended.
Yeah.
So I guess anyone, go ahead.
I just wanted to get them up there as quickly as possible.
Help people out.
Yeah.
Love that. Now, I kind of want to get to know you better. I kind of want to hear what you do. I kind of want to hear about your job and your experience with PowerShell. I know PowerShell Conference EU, I think 2019 you said was your first year, but what's your entry point in this kind of community been looking like?
So I've been using PowerShell since probably about 2008. So it's still PowerShell version 1. That was the first company I worked for, and we had a web portal to install, and it was a cumbersome task. It took 2 days to install and get it running. So then I just dabbled around with VBScript and PowerShell to see if I can automate it. And PowerShell was the solution. So over the years, I started automating things, got the installation down from 2 days down to 5 minutes. And that was my start. And I fell in love, never stopped it.
And now you work in a situation where you're developing in Docker.
Yeah, it's great. So the company I work for, we have an on-prem solution for our customers, and so we all deploy that into Windows environments. And basically, my job is to maintain and write all the scripting and all the automation to get our product to our customer using PowerShell and Octopus Deploy. So
nice.
Yeah. So those are the two things I'm mostly involved in is Octopus Deploy and PowerShell.
Nice. Yeah, I remember hearing about Octopus Deploy quite a while ago. Good to know they're still doing their thing. But so were you experienced with programming languages before PowerShell, or was it kind of the first excuse?
No, so I've got a background of click ops. So basically, I used to be just a normal internal admin doing everything over via GUIs, the way most of us or lots of us started. I did dabble around with a bit with C#, but never really on a professional basis. So it's always been PowerShell. Tried out a bit of Python, VBScript, great language. Yeah. So yeah. So PowerShell always has been my main focus.
Is VBScript really good, or was that a joke?
Definitely a joke.
Okay, good.
I feel like that's been a long-running joke from PSConfEU. Is someone once said they thought VBScript was better, and it's become a running theme.
Yeah. So I've got a T-shirt where it says VBScript is better than PowerShell. Yeah.
Oh gosh, when you say that, like my mind, I just see flash ups of like the code and how ugly it looks and like all the spacings. And I think for some reason, some words are in all caps.
Yeah, so what I'm not clear on is if whoever said that was joking or if it is someone that didn't understand his audience.
No, that only can be a joke. No possibility.
No, I didn't know. I was like, I figured it was a joke, but I just wanted to make sure because you didn't like wink at me or anything. And you never know. Some people might have like some kind of really positive experiences. All two of those people. But now we got Jordan here. We got you. I got to know, are you a customize kind of guy? Are you customizing your console, VS Code, making it look and feel amazing for you? Or are you a defaults kind of guy?
In between. I do customize a little, use Posh and whatever, but I try not to customize too much because I try to develop in different environments and it's just too much work, always deploying profiles, Posh, and. So I try to stay with the defaults.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for Andrew trying to bring you into what is our to date only heated argument. I don't customize anything. I run pure defaults, and it drives me nuts. I told him this. He didn't believe me, and then he saw my actual session and was so outraged at the very idea that he's never let it go.
No, so I do actually lean more towards defaults.
Oh.
I'm
Oh
definitely
my
alone
posh,
on the-
come on. Oh my posh is like you're kind of into it a little bit. You've read a blog post or two. Okay. That's not too bad. I mean, in VS Code, you got some extensions at least, right? You got a couple?
I've got dozens.
There we go.
Well, not just that, in your repo, you have your entire Windows terminal customization
Whoa.
just posted right up there.
Yeah, it's not that much.
Hey, compared to what Jordan's got going on, it is a treasure trove of fun. And are you normally a VS Code developer type guy?
Yeah, definitely. Great tool, love it. Works. I use the remote extension extensively, so that's how I develop. I try not to develop on my own box, but basically in containers or VMs.
Okay, let's talk about that just a little bit more because I think that's often underutilized. A lot of people are using VS Code. I think an even larger majority of the PowerShell world that's using VS Code isn't really tapped into using it to the next level and using it like maybe other developers would. So you're talking about using an extension, I think it's from VS Code Microsoft, where you can, through different methods, connect to a remote machine. You're still typing in your VS Code instance, but the PowerShell is running on a different machine in the session kind of deal.
Exactly. So basically, all the UI extensions get loaded, and I can keep that. So I've got my themes, I've got my font, everything I'm used to on my local machine. So I am local. I can copy and paste locally, but the VS Code server is running on a remote device, either Docker or a VM, and everything gets executed on that machine.
And it all uses the same extension, right? The remote development extension pack has remote SSH, dev containers, and Windows subsystem for Linux. So I guess it's just the difference between dev containers and remote SSH, right?
Yes. So basically, when I remote into a VM, I use SSH. If I remote into a dev container, a Windows dev container, it's also SSH, because the dev container is, as I said, Linux only.
Right. Nice. Yeah, I think that if you look for an extension for something, it probably exists. It feels like there are so many extensions. Like, even compared to browser extensions, I'm shocked at how many different plugins people have written. But I guess it's pretty cool because people like Chrissy and I think Justin Grody have written their own extensions. I think Chrissy Lemaire's written an extension. Maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, it seems pretty approachable to even develop your own. I think it's TypeScript, maybe?
It's TypeScript, yeah. I tried to, but I failed.
Yeah. Well, step one is to try and fail. Maybe, a couple of years later, it's a little easier. Some of the bugs are worked out and you're ready and attempt to.
Yeah, but there are quite some really good and amazing and functional extensions out there, which I like to use. So, yeah.
Now, on the topic of getting to know you a little bit more, we heard about your entry to PowerShell. I see there's a skateboard behind you. Can we get some background? What's up? You a skater?
I was basically. I'm in my mid-40s now, so the time of skateboarding is over. But yeah, when I was a teenager and in my 20s, I liked skateboarding.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I skated a little bit. Not much. I wasn't very good or anything. Just enjoyed the kind of coasting part.
Yeah. It was great fun. Kept breaking legs and arms, but yeah.
Oh, shoot.
That's part of it.
Yeah. Even just getting hit in the shins really hard a couple times would be enough for me to be like, ow, I'm good.
Yeah.
Jordan, you like beer, right?
I love beer.
You like PowerShell, right?
Indeed, I do love PowerShell.
What if we put PowerShell in your beer? Would that be something wild? Would you want to hear about that?
Well, I think more like is part of the brewing process. Maybe?
Well, I mean, that doesn't sound quite as nice, but I think we have the person that I think is the foremost expert in PowerShell brewery.
I'm willing to say there's no one else who has tweeted out about their PowerShell usage in the brew process.
I bet there is, unfortunately. But have they been on our podcast? That's a different question.
So this is all right. Now that we've gotten real awkward with it, so it seems to be. I looking through it because first of all, your Twitter handle is Lindner Brewery, so I think you take the brewing pretty serious based on what's in there.
Yeah, so the story about that is the house we've got in Germany is a house which was built in the 1930s, and at the back of the house we've got this soda factory, or a former soda factory. So in the 1930s, 40s, they used to make soda and pop in this building, and we still got a big sign saying Lindner, who was the former owner. So it used to be Lindner Drinks Company. We got this house off, and in this drinks factory, or the former drinks factory, I built up my home brewery. So, and then one came to the other, and I called myself Lindner Brewery on Twitter because I didn't know what to call myself.
So where in this process does PowerShell enter? Like, what do you use PowerShell with when you're brewing?
So basically, my brewing vessel is an all-in-one electric brewing vessel, and I got from this one-man Italian company, I got this PID controller to control the brew process, and the controller speaks MQTT. And because I was fed up with the interface, I basically just wrote a PowerShell module using MQTT to control my brew controller. So now I'm in my office on PowerShell, and then I can tap in a console, find out what temperature my mash temperature is, how long to go, and just chill.
Nice. That's the way to brew. Just chill.
Yeah, that's why I brew, because it's just very relaxing. It's not hectic. It's not stressful. It's like the most stress you have is, oh God, in 10 minutes I have to do something. It's really relaxed. It gives you 6 hours peace of mind. No job, no work, nothing.
So I guess, I don't know. It seems to me the reason I'd brew would be for the beer, but I'm weird like that. What is, in your opinion, the best beer you have made in all of your batches so far?
Good question. So I've got my go-to best bitter, which I like always do. Super simple, works every time. But my best was probably an IPA I submitted into a contest and got quite good marks for it. So yeah.
All right.
So I got a question about your house. So did you, I mean, first of all, it sounds awesome. You have a former factory and now a current best PowerShell brewery that's out there in your own home. But did you buy the home expecting to like do a brewery, or was it just like opportunity? It's like, oh, hey, this would be a good fit.
Yeah, it was just, we saw the house, we needed a house, the size was okay, we could afford it, and then we bought it, and we had all this room because we got this back building. And I mean, it's not a factory, huge factory, it's a small building. And then it was like, what can we do with it? And I said, oh, that's mine.
Nice. Well, maybe if we come to PSConfEU next year, we can have a beer with you somehow, even if it's not yours.
Oh, definitely. Maybe I can just brew it. If it's in driving distance, I can brew a keg and bring it along.
Brew a keg. That's a PowerShell party.
Business. There you go.
Sweet.
So have you ever, and this is, I'm going off track like I tend to do, especially when it comes to food or drink. Have you ever done a Doppelbock? That's my favorite type of beer. And I'm just curious if the process is different based, I mean, it's going to be a little bit different for an IPA versus a Doppelbock or a Pilsner.
So a Doppelbock is basically a lager beer, just like a low temperature fermenting lager beer, like a lager beer. It's just you use a hell of a lot more malt, so you just get it stronger. That's about the main difference. Doppelbocks are often dark beers, so you use dark malt. But for the brewing process is basically the same as with a Pilsner.
Okay.
Yeah. And you probably brew it in areas where you've got more lime scale in your water. And
okay. Yeah. Also the water type. So do you use extra filter? Because you mentioned like lime scale in the water. So the local water can impact it that much. Do you use filter water, or does the charm, I guess for lack of a better word, that the local water add, is that valuable, or how do you approach that?
No, I filter my tap water to brew with, and then when it's all filtered, then I put all the minerals back in, depending on the style of beer I'm brewing.
Okay, so you customize your water mineral. I didn't realize this was such a process. I mean, I guess it makes sense. There wouldn't be so much variety without it, but now you've got me going on a new topic here, Andrew.
No, it's always good to cover. I personally like getting to know people in the community, and from what I've heard, you were recommended to us by multiple people who were, I guess, just flattered by you, blown back by your authenticity and just you as a person, and getting to know you. I think there's probably a lot of people out here who are enjoying it. So Jordan, thanks for letting us see behind the curtain.
Well, I didn't, but our guest did.
Our guest's a professional. Have you been on a podcast before? He just coughed and muted his mic and brought it up. I mean, good gracious, this guy's a pro now.
Well, now that you called it out, now everyone knows. So that was nice of you.
Oh, I'm taken aback. I don't even do that half the time.
So I like to dig through people's reposts when they're a guest, just because I'm a creep like that. I saw one that was in there for import certificate, where you follow the certificate chains for URLs. Is that one that you built for a specific purpose, or is that just something you've been having fun with?
I built it for my specific usage case. So basically, when I pull up a new machine in the company, it's missing all the company certificates, and then I can just go out to one internal URL, pull down the certificate chain, and import it into the device, being a Linux container, VM, or whatever, and then just get installed so I can get my environment up and running. And so I just published that. I have quite a few modules I should publish, to be honest, but never got around to it because I've always got the feeling that they're not ready for general usage. But on the other hand, my experience now is, who cares? Just publish it. Someone else might want to continue my work, find a use case for it, and then that's fine.
Yeah, it seems worst case scenario it's used. Best case, someone either open up issues so you can start tracking things you might not have thought about, or they add to it and it becomes just a better product through collaboration.
Yeah. So basically, I haven't been contributing to the community a lot in the last years because I just felt insecure that the quality of my product isn't good enough. That was the reason I never submitted the talk, because I thought I wasn't good enough for the audience. But this conf just showed me, yes, I am, and lots of other people are as well. So just be confident, just do it.
You're not alone in that feeling. For the summit we went to here in Seattle, the most common feedback I got was I should stop being so negative about myself. So apparently you're not alone in feeling a certain way. I'm just very vocal about my perceived failure. So it's nice to know that, I don't know, if you're feeling that way, just know that I guess a lot of people in the community felt that way, and that's not the case. Contribute where you can. You'll feel better in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember who said it on the PSConf, but it was said, don't expect to know everything. You can't. We're just not able. Just do what you can do, and if you think you can contribute, just do it. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yep. And collectively, if we all do a little, it can turn into a lot. A thing that comes to mind is DBA tools. That is an effort from multiple people that creates this beautiful, amazing thing. Obviously, those people put a ton of work into it, but it just points to the fact that we are a community, right? Your talk was delivered by you, but supported by the community. And it sounds like over the years, like there were a little kind of you working up towards giving a talk eventually. And by you giving a talk and right now talking about your experience, you're helping those other people who are in your shoes, but a couple of years behind, to kind of start breaking down the barriers preventing them from contributing more. And it's, I don't know, the times I do worse and contribute the least are when I feel not part of a community and just like this isolated person at my job. Oh, these problems are just mine, but whenever we get that connection, I feel like everything gets a little bit easier. Plus, when you combine it with how friendly and kind the PowerShell community is, it just leads to a good experience. Now, I kind of want to ask another question about PowerShell, because I know you use it for brewery stuff, but are there any other non-techie IT stuff that you use PowerShell for?
No, not really.
That's fair.
No, it's just the brewing.
Yeah,
I think the closest I came to that was there was a coffee maker. I was writing some PowerShell to work with, and then the model we were using broke, so we bought the new one, and the new model completely changed their entire process to connect to it, and everything fell apart. So I missed out, but I almost was brewing my own coffee with PowerShell.
Yeah, that would be great. Invoke coffee. Yeah.
Yep, that's what we're working towards.
Yep. Most of my silly PowerShell stuff involves a REST API. Oftentimes, at least.
I'm going to revisit that now, because when I failed, that was 4 years ago. I'm better now.
Yeah, I'm sure it's possible.
Oh, coffee's coming.
Yeah, we need that.
All right, Emrys, it's all been fun and games and lighthearted now, but this is where we blindside you with 3 of the most difficult questions you've ever had to answer.
Live.
Yeah, so we like to lure people in with a false sense of security of it's a friendly chat, and then at the end, we really hit you with the difficult questions. Are you ready for these?
Yeah.
All right. Question 1. What is one time something went wrong at the job? How did you handle it, and what did you learn?
So basically, I've messed up at work so often, probably like most of us. Fortunately, they haven't been big issues. So yeah, I've accidentally pulled the plug on Exchange server, that sort of thing, but never been a really big issue. But basically, test. That's the only thing I can advise. Test as much as you can. It's super valuable, and it will help you find issues before they go into production. So I've been very lucky over the last couple of years that I haven't messed up in production, but only because I was lucky enough to find them when testing, preferably pest tests.
So that is, we get the answer occasionally, and it's almost on with people that approach a task methodical with, they almost have like an internal what-if process when they beginning to end.
Yes, so I'm guilty as sin when it comes to not writing enough pest tests. So this is actually something I've only been getting into the last 2 years, saying if I write a module, I need pest tests for each function. But in the past, just too much work, testing's too much of a deal, like most of us. But I had to learn it the hard way.
Yeah, Pestrous one, I think everyone agrees should be used more, but it's not easy, I guess, just to default to it when you're in the middle of writing.
Yeah, I think Pesta is, if you come from an operations background, not from a developing background, the concept of writing tests for its function is not your second nature. So if you come from an operations background, start writing PowerShell, I think Pesta can be overwhelming to begin with, and I think that's an issue. But when you get started and feel comfortable, it's a good tool.
Yeah, it was one for me that felt the most alien when it's feeling comfortable, just because it's you're supplying the expected result, so it's not really running anything. It's just like it should have this result, or it just the entire process was took me a while to wrap my head around, and I think I'm still struggle with it.
I still struggle when considering what shall I test and how shall I test. As a unit test, as a functional test, whatever. I'm struggling, but I'm getting better. I'm trying.
You know, next, Jordan, we haven't had an official Pester episode. We've talked about it a few times, but I might have something in store for us next week.
All right. Well, hopefully we have test in place for our episode. We're ready to go. See what I did there? I'm hilarious. All right, second question. No more fun and games. This is serious business. With everything you know now, what's one tip you'd give your younger self when you're first starting in IT?
Don't be afraid and automate. start off as early as you can with automation, because that's the way to go, and is the way to go in the future.
Automation is the answer for just about everything.
Stop using UIs.
All right, last one. This one's a big one. This is where most people. I mean, I know you think you got it under control, but you ready for the last question? What are your 3 favorite modules?
I didn't think of that, but it's a difficult one. So probably my favorite module is a module called Octodeploy, which is a module to automate Octopus deploy with. Unfortunately, that's a private module I wrote the last 3 years, so it's not out there yet. I'm hoping to be able to publish it this year, so maybe other people can look at it and help building it. Otherwise, I really like a small module called Configuration from Jacul. I don't know how you pronounce it. Basically, that's a module which you can use in your module development to save configuration, and you don't have to think about the form or the syntax. It will just take care of that. You're just giving some parameters, say export configuration, and when you load your module, say import configuration, it just works. And the third one, I really like PSDepend. It's made my life easier when building modules. That's a good one. From Rambling Cookie Monster, I think it is. I'm not sure.
Warren Frame, yeah. That helps you manage these on projects.
So it's been a while for us. This is the first time sometime we've these are 3 brand new unique modules we haven't heard before. After going on a year, this is new territory.
Okay, then can I change my modules? And I'll say import Excel, Pesta, and
no, it's import Excel is. I think that one might be in the lead at this point. That is a widely used module.
But maybe I think Emrys is saying if you say that, it's a cop-out. You need to dig deeper in your module collection and find a better answer. Next time, I guess only the hardcore listeners will kind of listen to enough episodes to see this, but look for the reaction on Jordan and I's face if someone drops an import Excel.
I'm genuinely thrilled because I'm a big fan.
Me too.
Yeah, I use it a lot. It's good.
Oh yeah, it's great. But sometimes people want to go in their bag of tricks and whip out something new we haven't seen before. So,
all right, well, I am sorry that we had to get so combative there. I know that process is difficult, but hopefully we're still friends. That was right. But after all that, all the stress of that, I mean, we always like to end on a note, and everyone likes to meet celebrities. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but you've actually been on camera with a celebrity. Because Andrew, he is the world's foremost authority on how to shill a product. He shills so well that actually, and then people don't know this, before Microsoft was even a full company, they contacted Andrew and asked him for, hey, how can we shill our product? And that is 93% of the reason of Microsoft's success to this date. But now we get the advantage of it, just front row seat to watch him spin his magic for shilling a podcast. Take away, Andrew.
Jordan, you get front row seats, and I'll be honest, I might have front row seats too, because I'm just looking at myself right now on the camera. You said that this is going to end on a note. It's definitely going to be a note. I don't know if it's a high note, but it's a note for sure. So thank you, everyone, for listening to another amazing episode. Thank you for Emrys for joining us. Give us a like, comment, and a subscribe, because I'm looking at the camera this time. So big improvements over here. You can email us, PowerShell@pdq.com. You can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice. I'm at Andrew Platek. You can follow us at PowerShell Pod. He's DevOps Jordan. Emrys, where can we find you? Where can we keep up with you? I think that a lot of people are going to really connect with what you've said today and are looking forward to seeing your continued contributions and tap in with you.
Yeah, so you can find me under Lindner Brewery on Twitter, and that's also my GitHub handle.
Awesome. And we will have links to all of the great stuff that we've talked about in the show notes, including a link directly to your GitHub and Twitter.
Yeah, and that's why he's the world's best right there.
I'm the world's.
The world's. All right. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully this people listening, they feel like they're on a similar journey, and this helps them take the next step like you did.
Thanks for listening to the PowerShell Podcast with your hosts, Jordan Hammond and Andrew Plaw.
He's a troublemaker. He's a rabble-rouser.
The PowerShell Podcast is a production of PDQ.com, making device management simple, secure, and pretty damn quick.